Tell us about the sports you started off with. What were the big ones?
The ones that I really clicked on were swimming initially and wheelchair basketball. They're the two. I did lots of others, but they're the two that I really felt that I might be able to make some impression on. And they were the two that I actually went to the first national games for me in 1964 down at Stoke Mandeville, and they were the two I was competing in. I had a go at other things while I was there, field events and all sorts of things, but the main events I was there for were swimming and basketball, the Lodgemore basketball team, and there'd probably be about 8 or 9 teams in the country then, and we're all playing off, and Lodgemore were one of the top teams, so it was very competitive, and really that was a brilliant outlet for energy and, well, basically physical ability. You could really rough it up if you wanted to in those days, and I loved that. I thought that was great sport.
Do you want to say something about how that particular sport, wheelchair basketball, has changed from the mid-60s to how it's being played today?
It's changed out of all recognition really, because it's the same game basically, but I mean, for instance, the wheelchairs we were in were ministry heavy chrome wheelchairs that weighed 45, 50 pounds in weight. Well, today the new chairs, I mean, if some of them weighed 10 kilograms and this sort of thing, and they're just so light, so manoeuvrable. The ability of the athletes is much greater now than it was then, because obviously it's far more professional and they train far harder than we did. I find that hard to believe, because we trained hard, but they actually do nowadays, because you've got professional coaches and you live, eat and sleep it, where some of us were working and then just going to the sports club whenever you could get up there, and also in the evening and weekends, probably playing in tournaments at the weekend. So we weren't actually full-time professionals like nowadays they are. And basketball has just changed out of all recognition. There's no recognition to what it was in the 60s, and obviously before that it was even worse than in the 60s.
Same levels of aggression though, or?
Oh yes, oh yeah. Now that's one thing that is the same, but now you have to harness it in a very subtle way, because you've got professional referees nowadays and they're watching every move, and of course it's supposed to be a sport of no contact. Well, that's always amuses us all, because there's a lot goes on off the ball, and of course there's a lot goes on with the wheelchairs, but it has to be very subtle nowadays, where in my day you could actually decide if somebody was roughing you up, you could return the compliment and rough them up, you know, and it sometimes got quite physical.
Do you want to elaborate on that, some examples?
Well, I mean, some of the instances that I've seen with fights breaking out, I mean, you can't believe it really, but 2 paraplegics lining up to try and take a swing at each other, and actually I have seen it where they've actually pulled each other out the chairs and end up on the floor fighting. Well, that's going to the extreme, but there was a lot of rough and tumble went on, and elbows in ribs and fingers trapped on the rims of the chair, and no, it could get quite fiery at times, and people really losing losing the patience and losing the temper with people, and the referees, I mean, quite often people were sent off. You know, you either just committed such a bad foul that they just sent you off immediately, or you got 5 chances, 5 warnings, 5 fouls, and when you got 5 fouls, you're off anyway. But no, it did get quite interesting. Once we got to international level, once it had progressed from national, and the ones that were lucky to get to the internationals, well, the same thing went on, but different nations were using different pieces of equipment, different wheelchairs and this sort of thing. And I remember one instant, which was the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. We were playing the Australian team, which were a very good team, in the final, and some of their older players, good players, very good players, that have been playing quite a while, were playing in what we call travos, and these are these big, heavy, like armchairs on wheels with the big wheels at the front, and they were very manoeuvrable. They weren't anywhere near as fast as the ones that some of us were using, but they were like hitmen and stoppers, and our main frontman, Cyril Thomas, for GB, point player that was scoring a lot of the baskets. Obviously their coach told one of their guys in a travo to take him out, and this guy was roughing Cyril up, and he'd taken all his knuckles off and cut his knuckles, because these travos could spin on a sixpence with the big wheels at the front. They could spin, and of course you got a lot of weight, and there were big and bulky chairs and big strapping blokes that were in them. And Cyril had got, well, blood pouring from his knuckles, and he warned this guy, Mather Brown. He said, "You do that again." And Cyril was about 6'4", and he was a big guy. He said, "You do that again and you're in trouble." Well, of course, Mather Brown tried to do it again and caught him again. Well, Cyril did no more, and he just, bang. That was the end of Mather Brown, but of course Cyril was off straight away. Anyway, we still won the gold medal for the game, so that was all right. It all worked out in the long run.
And this was him deliberately
taking his knuckles off. As Cyril was pushing and trying to turn, Mather Brown was just spinning this big heavy chair. They were trying to take him out of the game, but it backfired on them, and it ended up with both of them out of the game. But it really motivated the rest of the GB team when Cyril laid Mather Brown out, and he had to go off, and of course Cyril followed him. But Cyril sat down as proud as punch, and especially when we won the game.
So that was 1970. What was it, Edinburgh?
That was the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. That was 19.
Or 70s.
Was that 70? It was 74 in New Zealand. I think it was 70.
Yeah.
1970 in Edinburgh.